This year, not wanting to risk unpredictable border blocks due to COVID, we decided to spend our 2 months of summer vacation crossing Italy from north to south. It was definitely worth it. We begin the holidays by visiting Verona, according to the locals, the city of the three C's, i.e. churches, cellars and barracks, in Italian, caserme. The barracks have recently been significantly downsized, but churches and cellars where Prosecco and Spritz dominate at any time, are actually, after the legendary arena, the emblem of this city. Our stopping point is Camping San Pietro, in the center, shaded on the castle hill, a 5-minute walk from the historic city center. The first wooden bridge dates back to 148 BC, or by the hand of man. His most serious injury was in 1945, when he was mined and blown up by German soldiers. It was rebuilt by reusing the original blocks recovered in the adage. The two arches in white limestone date back to Roman times. The brick part with the tower above are from the Scala and Venetian periods. The large central hall has not only an aesthetic purpose, but serves to ensure the release of water in the event of a flood. It is believed that in the place where the current religious building stands, in the Lombardy era there were already 2 Christian churches built by the Ostrogothic king Theodoric. The current basilica visible today was consecrated in 1471. The exterior of the temple is in Veronese Gothic style. The incomplete facade is characterized by a large door framed in a pointed marble arch, a central rose window and 2 mullioned windows at the height of the naves. On the left there is the interesting sepulchral arch where Guglielmo da Castelbarco lies. The interior of the church, rich in works of art, is divided into 3 naves covered with cross vaults. The naves are separated by 2 series of columns in white and red Veronese marble, with Gothic capitals. The walls of the longitudinal arm of the basilica are mostly painted with frescoes and enriched by altars, chapels and funeral monuments of illustrious citizens of Verona. The floor is still the original one from 1462. It is made up of marble in 3 colors: white, black and red. In the middle of the transept there is a rose window, a symbol of the Dominican order. 2 distinctive elements of the interior are the holy water stoops, supported by 2 mustachioed humpbacks, dating back to 1491. In a tiny and austere square, the Duomo of Verona is the most beautiful and precious church in the city. Externally harmonious and high on the roofs of the center, it was consecrated in 1187. The plan of the building is rectangular, divided into 3 naves by 2 series of arches set on mighty pillars in red Verona marble. The ancient presbytery, though raised by 3 steps, is protected by an elegant monumental semicircular enclosure, consisting of a high base on which the Ionic columns surmounted by candelabra are set. Along the sides of the side aisles there are 8 minor altars, 4 on each side, inserted within emerging chapels. On the 2 sides of the triumphal arch that gives access to the presbytery there are 2 other chapels. All the chapels are surrounded by large frescoes and the altars house valuable paintings by famous painters, Veronese and not. The cloister, located in Piazza Duomo, It was built in the Romanesque style in the first half of the 12th century. Its main feature is the marvelous portico, with round arches resting on two columns with Doric capitals in red marble. On one side of the cloister, even, the arch is a double and placed one on top of the other. Urbe Piazza dell'Urbe is an enchanted corner of Verona, where palaces, towers, statues and architectural elements from various eras overlap, creating a harmonious, unique and unrepeatable collage. For many centuries, Piazza Urbe was the hub of Verona's social, economic and religious life. Here we find the 13th century Palazzo della Ragione, also called del Comune, which for centuries was the center of the city's political power. The palace is dominated by the Torre dei Lamberti, built in 1172 by the homonymous family. The eastern side of the square ends with a splendid building, the Case Mazzanti, already used in the 14th century by the Scaligeri. They are famous for the lively mythological frescoes on the facade, which represent ignorance, prudence, envy, providence and the struggle between giants. In the square there is also the ancient column, a Gothic pillar with aedicule erected in 1401 to carry the insignia of the Visconti of Milan, during the years in which they dominated the Veronese area. Continuing, note the 13th century capitello, a marble canopy in which the rulers settled for the proclamations to citizenship, and where the severed heads of the criminals were exposed. The arch of the coast, from which a gigantic rib hangs. According to popular belief, it was a rib lost by the devil, but in reality it is a whale rib used as a sign by one of the spice and merchandise shops that overlooked the square in the Middle Ages. The Palazzo della Ragione is a majestic quadrangular building with an internal courtyard, located between Piazza dell'Urbe and Piazza dei Signori. A municipal domus, built in the 12th century to accommodate the new magistrates of the municipality, incorporating various pre-existing buildings, and equipped at the time with four mighty defensive corner towers. Among these the famous Lamberti Tower, built in 1172 and raised several times to become the highest tower in the city. Going past the arches, you enter the courtyard of the Old Market, which in the 15th century housed the grain market. This is the most fascinating and best preserved area of the complex, where you can breathe a typically medieval air. It is surrounded by a portico with round arches supported by rustic ashlar pillars and surmounted by an order of 3 light windows. In one corner it is embellished by La Scala della Ragione, a late Gothic jewel of rare beauty built in red Veronese marble. After the last restoration works, the large halls of the noble floor house the headquarters of the Modern Art Gallery, which houses a selection of modern artworks belonging to the collections of the municipality of Verona. The Loggia di Fra Giocondo, also known as the Loggia del Consiglio, is located along the northern side of Piazza dei Signori, next to the Palazzo di Cangrande and in front of the Palazzo del Capitanio. The Palace of the Podesta hosted the court of Prince Cangrande, first of the Scala in the years in which Verona extended its dominion also over Vicenza, Padua, Mantova, Treviso and Brescia. A palace where poets, painters, sculptors, musicians and artists of all kinds were kindly welcomed. The Scaliger arches are a monumental, majestic and scenographic tomb, which for over 700 years has welcomed the mortal remains of the ancient lords of Verona. Here rest the rulers of the Della Scala family, with their elaborate equestrian sculptures. The Arche Scaligere are one of the most evocative sights in the city of Verona. A small private cemetery, monumental and scenographic, in which the tombs of the noble Scaligeri are preserved, together with the grandiose funeral monuments of Can Grande I, Mastino II and Can Signorio, famous for their equestrian sculptures that rise towards the sky. In Via Capello, a few tens of meters from the central Piazza dell'Urbe, stands the house where Giulietta Cappelletti lived. An imposing wrought iron gate, on which stands the coat of arms of the Del Capello family, separates its entrance hall, where lovers of all places and ages leave testimony of their love. Beyond it you enter a small but bright internal courtyard that welcomes visitors. In it there is the splendid bronze statue of Juliet, and a plaque on which some verses of Shakespeare's tragedy are reported. The Church of Santa Eufemia is a religious building of considerable size and interesting artistic value. It is located a few steps from the center, far from the chaotic hit-and-run of traditional tourist itineraries. It is very popular with the Veronese who live in the historic center. It was built between 1275 and 1450 by the Augustinian friars. Inside, on each side there is a series of 7 altars that mark the space and embellish it with valuable altarpieces that well represent the Veronese painting of the 500. Porta Borsari is a majestic Roman gate dating back to the 1st century after Christ, which during the imperial era was the main city entrance. Via Postumia entered Verona from it. The road built by the consul Spurius Postumio that at the time connected the Tyrrhenian Sea with the Adriatic Sea. The arena is undoubtedly the symbol of Verona. The basic element of the amphitheatre plan is the ellipse of the arena. For dimensions, the arena is in 4th place among the amphitheatres located in Italy. The appearance of the monument today is quite different from the original one, in particular due to the lack of the outer ring, which would have been the real monumental facade. The only remaining stretch of the outer wall is the so-called ala, made up of 4 arches. The capacity was recently calculated, for the summer shows of the arena, at 22,000 people. But it must be taken into account that the stage occupies about a third of the seats, and that there is no longer the portico in the highest part of the cavea. We can speak very realistically of a capacity, in Roman times, of about 30,000 seats. Ponte Scaligero, also known as Ponte di Castelvecchio, was built in the second half of the 14th century by Can Grande according to Della Scala. Ponte Scaligero is a magnificent example of 14th century military engineering. With its elegant lines it boldly rushes over the Adige River starting from the Torre del Mastio, located in the center of the medieval fortress of Castelvecchio. Originally the bridge was only accessible from the inner courtyard of the castle. Persisting even during the years of Austrian domination, the military use of the latter, the pedestrian transit was allowed only after 1870, when a new arch was opened near the clock tower. built with the prevalent use of terracotta bricks and a copious use of local white stones, the ensemble of the two materials offers an extraordinary pictorial and scenographic effect, inside and outside of the same, above all for the play of chiaroscuro of the elegant Ghibelline battlements, with the characteristic dovetail shape. The Basilica of San Dino is one of the most important buildings in the city. The facade, in toughened marble, is characterized by the large circular rose window, the work of Briolotto, and decorated with 6 statues that represent as many moments of the human condition. The man on the throne, who then falls, is crushed by misfortune and then recovers and climbs, creating the Wheel of Fortune. It was one of the first windows with this representation of life. Under the rose window we find the porch, a simple and elegant architectural structure supported by columns that rest on lions, with sculptural decorations representing figures of months, prophets and plants. To the right of the basilica stands a 72-meter bell tower which takes up its style by alternating bands of tuff and terracotta, and which contains the oldest bells of Verona, merged in 1149. The interior of the church, with a cross-shaped plan Latin with 3 naves, has a peculiar subdivision on 3 levels. The crypt is at the bottom, dominated first by the church reserved for the people, and then by the presbytery, or upper church, which is accessed via 2 majestic marble stairways. Particularly interesting are the baptismal font of the 12th century, the large monolithic porphyry cup placed on the left of the entrance, coming from the Roman baths, and the 2 wings of frescoes made between the 13th and 14th centuries, which testify the evolution of the Veronese pictorial art. The Church of Santa Maria in Organo is a very ancient place of worship whose origins are lost over time and date back to the age of the Lombards. Its interior retains an extraordinary pictorial decoration, with frescoes made by the major Veronese painters of the Middle Ages. During the visit, the elaborate inlays deserve particular attention. From the first glance, the visitor perceives that he has entered an important temple, which preserves a very rich pictorial decoration. Particular attention deserve the incredible inlays present in the wooden choir and on the cupboards of the sacristy. Made between the end of the 15th and the beginning of the 16th century by Friar Giovanni da Verona, they depict urban landscapes of Verona and the ideal city, allegories, still lifes, common objects and liturgical use with painstaking mastery. The island of Garda was originally a Longobarд monastery of Queen Ansa. It is the largest island on Lake Garda and is a private property. Just over 200 meters from the shore, it measures approximately 1 kilometer in length and is 60 meters wide on average. In 1870, the island came into the hands of Duke Gaetano de' Ferrari of Genoa, who devoted himself to the design and construction of the park and conceived the construction of a luxurious palace. On his death the villa passed to the Borghese and later to the Cavazza family. His great-grandchildren, who still live there today, continuing to take care of the park and the preservation of the building, have opened the island to tourist visits since 2002. Few meters from Punta Belvedere, the small and precious island of San Biagio emerges, commonly known as Isola dei Conigli, characterized by green meadows, cypresses and flowering bushes. As the name suggests, one of its peculiarities is the presence on the territory of numerous free rabbits, now accustomed to the company of humans. What makes it even more unique is the fact that it can be reached on foot, when conditions allow it, through a strip of seabed that connects it with the mainland, where the San Biagio campsite is located. In periods of very low water the level reaches the knees. For the less adventurous, and in case of bad weather, there is a taxi boat service that connects it to Porto Torchio. Madonna Corona. The sanctuary of the Madonna della Corona was built in the 15th century as a hermitage. It became a sanctuary in 1625, when the Knights of Malta had a new church rebuilt. In the holy year 1975 work began for the renovation of the church, and it was dug into the rock to expand it. Today it occupies an area of 600 square meters. While once it was accessed only through a climb of steps from the village of Brentino, today it can also be reached via an asphalted road, which can only be traveled on foot, which ends in a tunnel carved into the rock where the painting of the Madonna is exhibited. The sanctuary is entirely dug into the rock. Two walls, the left one and the apse, are made of the rock itself. The sanctuary houses relics and canvases, but the most striking aspect is certainly its position, set in the vertical rocky wall, and overlooking the valley of the Adige below. Baia del Serene Beach is located on Lake Garda and precisely on the eastern shore, near Bardolino. You can reach this magnificent beach through a beautiful walk in the park of the same name. It is not possible to reach the beach by walking along the entire lakefront of Garda, because at a certain point the small strip of beach disappears and you only meet rocks. The Baia del Serene Beach is subject to charges, and the entrance ticket also includes parking, the rental of sunbeds, umbrellas and deck chairs. Also available for the customers of the Baia del Serene are all the bathing services, bar, restaurant and picnic area. In the summer months this beach is very popular, while in the low season towards the late afternoon it is possible to have free access to the beach. the ideal time to enjoy a magnificent sunset over Lake Garda and enjoy an aperitif in a fabulous place. The Tibetan Bridge over Lake Garda is located near Torre del Beneco, on the Venetian side of the lake, and is an ideal destination if you want to take a trip different from lakeside walks. The Tibetan Bridge, inaugurated in August 2019, connects the town of Pi di Sopra with the village of Quero. This is a really exciting place to visit. 34 meters long and just over a meter wide. The bridge reaches a maximum height of about 45 meters. The bridge is made entirely of steel with anti-slip grids to ensure safety even for the little ones. The walk on the Tibetan Bridge is safe and stable, even if there is always a minimum of oscillation, what it takes to feel a little thrill. Are you looking for a spectacular and unique view of Lake Garda? You can find it in Tremesine, a town on the Brescia side overlooking the Garda waters. Considered one of the most beautiful villages in Italy, the whole town, in reality, is a kind of natural terrace overlooking the lake, set in the rock of a plateau, with a landscape that excites at first glance. It is one of the most famous viewpoints on Lake Garda. An architectural precipice structure considered an essential stop for those traveling in the Garda area. Surrounded by an iron railing, the platform juts out over the promontory on which it was built, and allows you to admire the Garda almost suspended in the air. The scene that the gaze embraces from the Terrazza del Brivido is unique between clouds, mountains, waters and greenery. On days when the sky is clearer, it is possible to see the Prealps, the Veronese side of the Garda and even the Sirmione Peninsula. Path Limone is a splendid location that has already been visited several times, and this time we are directed exclusively to the Limone Riva del Garda cycle path. They are 2 kilometers of spectacular route built overhanging the lake, partly on a wall and partly on rock, using iron and steel bridges and arches and lots of wood. The road is set between the sheer mountain and the waters of Lake Garda. It is really very suggestive to go through, and the whole complex built, in addition to being an attraction for many tourists, is a beautiful example of engineering. The width of the street is 2.5 meters, and the floor is made of concrete panels covered with a slatted finish. The cycle path of Limone can be covered in total safety even on foot. Indeed, the majority of people walk along it, enjoying a unique spectacle overlooking the lake. research by the Agnelli Foundation revealed that Lake Tenno is the cleanest freshwater mirror in Italy. In fact, Lake Tenno is a real natural jewel of Trentino, which for its incredible shades of blue turquoise is called by some Lake Blue. Lake Tenno has a modest surface but is characterized by a strong overhang in the levels. At the end of the rainy period in autumn, for example, the lake level is 15 meters higher than in the summer, when the small island in the lake is accessible on foot. In winter, however, this island disappears and only trees emerge from the lake. The medieval village of Canal di Tenno is undoubtedly a must for those who want to immerse themselves in the magic of a place of other times, where history, art and culture can be breathed. Perched on a slope halfway between Lake Garda and the Alps, it was recently included in the list of the most beautiful villages in Italy, and it's no wonder. Narrow paved alleys, arcades, internal squares, leaning houses one to the other as in the ancient villages of the 13th century. The town, abandoned in the post-war years, came back to life in the 1960s thanks to a lively artistic and cultural activity.